expect you to do the thing if you've never done the thing before, but to get the job, you need to have done the thing before. Hello, my name is Caitlin and welcome back to My Tech Wardrobe. If you're new here, most of the time I do fashion videos and sometimes I just do these random videos to see what you like. Today, I want to swerve a little bit from that topic and talk about something that I get asked about a lot. As a quick recap, if you're new here, the name My Tech Wardrobe grew out of my job in the tech industry. I've been able to sort of take my non-traditional background and spin it into something in the tech industry that I'm actually pretty proud of and I'm happy with. I'm going to try basically a new type of story time series on this channel that is sort of separate from those outfit tips. Basically, this is just going to be the story of how I found my first job in the tech industry with an arts degree, with absolutely no industry experience whatsoever. I'm talking literally none. And how I've turned that initial first job into a bit of a career so far. If you're looking to get into the tech industry, if you're just about to finish school and are embarking on a job hunt, this video could be for you. If you're just interested in general about the type of work that you can do if you don't have something like an engineering degree in the tech industry, this video could be for you. It's gonna be chatty, it could be long, I have no idea. So if you want to learn more, just grab a cup of tea or a cookie or something and just chill out and relax, and I will weave you a tale of a frightened early career woman and her rise to whatever this is. I have 2 history degrees, a bachelor's of arts history, is that what it's called? And a master's of arts history. Now, I always knew that history was going to be the path. In high school, I just had really good history teachers, and I ended up in university doing an undergrad degree for history because I thought, was positive, that I would become a tenured history professor by the age of maybe 27. Now, if you're not familiar with the tenure system, that is completely not feasible at all, but gosh darn it, I was gonna do it. I was so positive. I was so positive. So right after my 4-year history degree, I went straight into a history master's program. For a lot of master's programs, even in the arts still, it's a 2-year program. So you sort of have some time to do classes and your major research paper or your thesis. My master's program was actually only 1 year because essentially you're meant to kind of go from your undergrad to your 1-year master's, which is sort of like a bridge right into your PhD. And I was 100% going to do that because, as we know, I was going to be a university professor. So I go into my master's degree and I burn out immediately. You basically do a few classes a week, you read multiple books for each class a week. So I was reading, close to 9 books a week. I had part-time jobs. I was helping to TA or teach another undergrad course. And I sat down one day and I just thought, I don't think I can do this forever. And it was not that I didn't like history, because I did, but I just was feeling so burnt out and so tired of the sort of academic life that I thought, you know what would be easier than being in school? Having an adult job. Oh, Caitlin. So in the first semester, I had to apply to grad school and apply for funding again for a PhD. And I just thought, I'm not gonna do it. After basically 7 years of thinking, history's for me, I'm going to be a professor, I'm going to build a career in research, this is just what I'm gonna do. I decided not to do that, which was the most liberating and terrifying feeling in the entire world. Again, it's not that I didn't like history as a discipline. I loved it. I still do. But I just thought that I was limiting my scope of the type of work I could do too early. I would say that if you're graduating from any degree, really, think about what you actually like to do, because there may be jobs available for you that you don't even know exist. So I would just take that final year of your degree and do a lot of research and start networking with people in the fields you think you may be interested in, and then go from there, because I didn't do any of that. I did not have a co-op or an internship program as a part of my degree, so I didn't really try to pursue those opportunities either, because I thought I was going to go straight into a PhD. So by the time I got to my master's program and decided not to move on, I mean, I didn't even know where to start. I had no industry connections, I had no network, I had no knowledge of grown-up jobs. I knew nothing. I knew that if I were to continue into a PhD, I just wouldn't be happy. And happiness, I recognize, is sort of a luxury when it comes to a career. Like, to be able to say, I want to pursue a career that makes me happy, I think that sentence is great, but it also comes with a lot of privilege, because it means that you can pursue, or you have the means to pursue, the things that make you happy, rather than having to, sometimes just take a job because you need it and you have to support yourself and the people around you. So I acknowledge that that's a privilege that I had and still have. And I can maybe talk about this in another video, but the concept of having a first job is a bit tricky, because I think people want to graduate and then find their dream job immediately. And that's just not how it works. And frankly, I don't even really know if a dream job exists, because there's always going to be parts of your job that you don't like, but you put up with because you like, 80, 90% of it if you're lucky. So let me know if you want a video on that, especially about how to navigate a first job. Because my time was very full, busy throughout my grad degree, of course, I make that decision not to apply for grad school around the fall. I think it was around October or November. But do you think I used that time to figure out what I actually wanted to do as a career? I bet you didn't. No. Yeah, that's correct. Absolutely not. I tried to just get all of my schoolwork done, get everything I needed to do, maintain my GPA and my grades. So I basically just did not search for a job or try to build a network at all for the next 8 months after that. I know, looking back, I'm like, what are you thinking? Like, actually, what was she thinking though? So literal graduation time rolls around for my master's degree. I've finished my major research paper. I've defended it. I've been granted the degree. In about like the beginning of September of that year, I started to think like, oh no, I better like actually really get down to this, because I don't have a lot of time left. I got bills to pay. So, like I said, I had a few part-time jobs at the university. I was the ambassador coordinator at a sort of welcome program where parents would bring their kids to the university and sort of get tours and understand a little bit more about their program. I was a writing tutor for basically my entire time at university, where I would basically coach fellow students into becoming better writers and help them with their essays and that sort of thing. I had office hours. And then I was a teaching assistant during my master's degree. So I led a class tutorial every week where we discussed the readings. So I had those three things and I volunteered a lot. So I was a volunteer note taker for the Accessible Learning Center. I was a volunteer tour guide at the sort of welcome weeks and stuff. I was very involved. And a lot of those were in obviously a part-time capacity because I was a full-time student. So I knew I had skills from all of those areas that I could potentially apply to a job somewhere, but I didn't know what that job was going to be, and I didn't know how I could apply those skills. So that was sort of the first challenge. But I also wanted to highlight the skills I actually learned over the course of my 2 degrees in history, because people think you don't really learn much other than memorizing dates and sort of regurgitating them on essays, but that's just not true. You learn a lot about how to argue verbally and articulate a point based on doing a lot of research. You become so much more of a skilled writer and communicator. You learn how to work really well on your own, but also function as a part of a group because you're in tutorials multiple times a week with your fellow students. So I had a pretty decent, what I thought about as a soft skills library that I could sort of draw from for any particular role that I might want to pursue. So I thought I can actually probably do quite a few jobs with these skills. I don't know how to find them. The first thing I did was go to our career center at my university and say, please help, I don't know what I'm doing. They were able to give me some great tips and tricks about how to articulate your skills on your resume. So making sure that you not only show quantifiably what you've done in your previous work experience, but also what the impact of what you've done was. If you've given tours to 500 students, what was the impact of that? Well, maybe you were a significant part of the reason that they chose to come to that university because you provided a welcoming environment. It's stuff like that that sounds a lot better than excellent verbal and written communications skills. I'm a genius. Maybe we'll get to that in another video because I, spoiler alert, ended up doing some recruiting in my career, and that was pet peeve number 1 on resumes. So basically, I beefed up my resume. It was well written. It was black and white and very boring, but I started using it to apply to basically any job I saw anywhere. I'm talking LinkedIn careers, Indeed. I tried basically every service where you submit your resume and then potential job matches could sort of spew out at you. And I was very ambitious. I was applying to roles in marketing that I had no experience in. I was applying to roles at a donkey sanctuary I again had no experience in. The amount of faith I had in myself was actually quite endearing because I thought I could do anything, which is kind of a good quality to have, I think. But in a job hunt, it helps to be very not realistic, but you kind of just have to accept you're not going to get a call back for a lot of what you apply for because you simply, in their eyes, are not qualified to do it because you haven't done it before. Now, pause for a second because that's very challenging for new grads who often have almost no work experience at all. How do they expect you to do the thing if you've never done the thing before, but to get the job you need to have done the thing before? I mean, So I applied for so many jobs, so many industries, and I got not many callbacks. Like truly, if you've ever searched for a job, you know that when you press submit on that application and your resume sort of goes out into the ether, it's usually just crickets. I mean, that's okay. It happens. You're not going to get a call back for everything that you apply for, and it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means you were unlucky and no one saw your resume, or your resume isn't strong enough for what they're looking for, it didn't catch their eye, or you're just simply not a fit, skills-wise, for the role that they need. I was getting almost no callbacks. But then, one day, in, I think, the the beginning of October, I got a couple of callbacks. I had applied for a number of roles, but I applied for one. It was a talent acquisition coordinator role at a small, very small tech company in the city that I lived. And I didn't really know a lot about them. And they were a wearable technology company, which was pretty cool. So they built like hardware that could work with your body. It's very interesting. I just thought, well, this seems like a pretty entry-level job. You're scheduling interviews, you're managing the candidate process, but all those things, all that sort of soft skills library that I had developed before, I figured that could be pretty useful in this type of environment, because I think I can do it. Again, lots of self-confidence. You gotta have some. So I got what every job hunter craves. I got a phone interview. I spoke with a recruiter at the company. I was able to articulate the pretty good match that I had between my skills and the role. Good rapport building capability with people matched with my research skills and very clear written and verbal communication, because I did all those tutorials and all that writing tutor and teaching work. So I thought, you know what, this will be a good fit. And I was able to articulate that in the phone interview, which is great. So after that, I actually got an in-person interview. So this is where it sort of comes back to fashion, because when you think about what to wear to a job interview, I think the concept of that has changed quite a bit over the past 7 or 8 years since I had to consider it originally. I know that everything's virtual now, so people are really probably only just wearing dress shirts and no pants on interviews still, but you know, check my video on what to wear to an interview if you are curious about what to do there. But the first thing I was freaking out about was, this is a tech company, and you know the tech company stereotype. A bunch of guys in hoodies and sneakers and plaid shirts and just basically a casual vibe. But what was I supposed to wear to an interview? First of all, I didn't really wear hoodies that often, and I just didn't feel comfortable wearing jeans and a t-shirt to an interview. So I had been on some interviews prior to this set of interviews for other grown-up jobs, but they were sort of that type of business professional format. So they were a very different industry. You know, you kind of know what to wear to that. So I went out and I bought a couple of H&M pantsuits. While I was trying all of this on, I asked the person at the H&M fitting room, hey, does this make me look like a flight attendant? You know, implying that I didn't want to look like a flight attendant for this interview. And she said, yes, okay, at least you're honest. I bought it anyway. For a tech company, when it's so casual, I just thought, do I wear my pantsuits? Will that be weird? And eventually I just said, you know, well, screw it, I guess I will, because I have no idea what else to wear. So I turn up to this interview. I think I wore a black dress under a blazer with some heels. I look like quite possibly the most boring person on earth. This is what I used to think grown-ups looked like. And everyone around me is just t-shirts and jeans. I felt so out of place, but like honestly, I would rather be the most overdressed person in the room than the most underdressed, so I actually didn't mind too much. So I go in for the interview, and quick caveat, tech interviews are a million years long. To give you a quick snapshot of all of the interviews in this process, I had a phone interview, I had an interview with that recruiter again in person, in addition to meeting with 2 other members of the team, one of whom would be my boss, and then I had another set of follow-up interviews on another day with 1 member of the executive team, another member of the executive team, and one of the founders of the company. So essentially that's like a 3 or 4 step process, which now I don't find very strange because I've again been in this industry for a few years now, but at the time I was like, where am I? Why am I here? Why do you want to talk to me so much? Isn't this a job that no one really cares about that much? I'm gonna level with you. The job was basically, it's very entry level. It's, you know, you book interviews and you answer emails from candidates. So obviously you want someone who's good at building that type of rapport, but I mean, it's not total rocket science. So I was very surprised when they all of a sudden are like, hey, the co-founder wants to meet with you. I was like, why? So I walked into that first interview and like, I don't get nervous that often. I'm pretty comfortable speaking with people, even in an interview setting where it is kind of contrived, like you're talking to strangers across the table and trying to convince them to hire you. I still was pretty comfortable with the whole scenario, but I was still kind of nervous. The one thing I remember is that it was, I think, a very late September day or very early October day, but it was an unseasonably warm day. And when I walked in, there were these sort of floor to ceiling windows, and it was so hot in there. Heat just pouring right in, and I had to sit in the sort of reception area on a metal bench. The bench was made of metal. I was so sweaty. Like, you know how when you're nervous, you're gonna get sweaty anyway? So I had nerve sweat and heat sweat going on at that first interview, and I just thought, oh my god, my face must be so red and they're gonna think like I'm just extra nervous. And I was kind of nervous, but not tomato face nervous. I would like tent my fingers in my lap so that I could like air out my palms. It was bad. It was bad. But if interviews ever go back to in person, good tip is just, as you're waiting, you kind of look a bit like you're contemplating an evil plan, but it helps alleviate the clammy hands. So, you know, it's a trade-off. So anyway, I go for that first interview, and I think I'm still doing a pretty good job at articulating my skills and why I'm kind of an unconventional candidate by tech company standards, but I think I can do it. Even though I was joining what essentially became an HR team as the company grew, I still wasn't a traditional candidate for HR either. I didn't have a business degree. I didn't have industry experience at all, which would have helped in that type of environment. I was really starting from absolute scratch. So my mission in that second round of interviews was to help them understand why, even though I might be unconventional, I was the best choice. So one thing that I used, and I think my little history research nerd brain sort of went into overdrive prior to this set of interviews, because I basically said, I need to understand everything about this company from its foundation to up until that point that I was interviewing with them. I need to know who works at this company. I need to understand exactly what interviewing well actually looks like. So beyond, you know, just having a good handshake, which I guess in today's world, I'm just gonna retire the handshake altogether. I know we were fist bumping and elbow bumping just prior to the pandemic, but like, are we ever gonna touch strangers again? Because I would be okay if we don't. Anyway, part of the research that I did was look at interviewing strategy as a candidate and understanding what that looked like in practice, and how do you convince people you're good for the job, how do you help them understand that you're the best candidate. And a lot of it just comes down to how you answer their questions, because you want to make your answers as easily digestible as possible and give them enough evidence that they can use to then decide whether you're the best candidate or not. The way that I did that was just follow the STAR method. It's widely available basically everywhere on the internet. It just stands for situation, task, action, result. And that is the format that you want to use to answer every interview question. It just means that when they ask you something, you explain the situation that you were in, what you were tasked with, the actions that you took to complete that task, and what the result of those actions were. And if you can do that, you're probably gonna nail your interviews. So fortunately, I got the call back that they wanted me to come in again for that other set of interviews. I was able to apply the same format. I think I was a good culture fit for them, And boom, by the end of that month, I had my first job. Now, I had been interviewing at other companies at the same time, and I had a couple of offers from elsewhere, but realistically, I was kind of trying to weigh the idea of, well, if this is a tech company, maybe I have some more room for growth, whereas in these more traditional industries, you sort of have to really hit certain ladders and levels. And for me, coming from a very unstructured sort of history, arts background, I really didn't want too much structure. So that's why I ended up going with the offer from this company. I can honestly say I owe my entire career to that first job. And it's not always the case where your first job determines the course of your entire career. I don't want to say that because I don't think that's necessarily true. If you start a job that isn't necessarily in the field you want to do, but you need to pay your bills, you need to do it. And you can transition into another type of work or career later on. But for me, it just happened to be that that role was a good fit for my skills, and it allowed me to grow in the way that I think has been very beneficial to me over the course of my career in the tech industry. So I'm not saying that if you do all of these things that you're guaranteed to find a role in the tech industry or in the industry you want to go into in general. I think it's very difficult, and the whole job search process does involve a very, very small amount of luck for the right person to see your resume at the right time. And unfortunately, due to the volume of applicants for a lot of these sort of entry-level style roles, that's just how it is. But because I was applying to a smaller company, I think the odds were a little bit more in my favor. So what are some of the things that I think I did to help get me into that first job? Well, first, I think I had a good resume. It wasn't designed that well, but it read really well, and it helped the reader understand the impact of my skills and my work. So I think that's sort of a good in, because that can help the reader understand exactly what you may be good at and translate that into what they're looking for the role. I was able to verbally articulate my skills and answer those questions really well based on that STAR method that I talked about earlier. The key to a lot of these interviews is just helping the interviewer understand why you're a good fit and be able to visualize you already doing the job. So what you need to do to convince them really is to help them understand the impact of the work you've done. Think of it as sort of the resume part 2. You're not going to repeat everything word for word that's already on your resume, but you want to help them understand why, even if you may be an unconventional candidate, you are the right candidate at the right time. And the third thing, which I think might be specific to tech companies, is that they're really just looking for people who have an open mind, who are willing to work hard, and to take on any challenge with some flexibility and adaptability. I think because I had that sort of varied background, even though I didn't have a ton of, concrete work experience, and certainly none in the tech industry, I could show that I was flexible and adaptable. I was willing to take on challenges and find a solution. My problem-solving skills were quite strong, and I was able to articulate those both on my resume and during the interviews. And really, at the end of the day, tech is all about problem solving. They are looking to engineer a specific solution to a problem. And a lot of the times, they have to get really creative about how they do that. If you can embody those principles, then you can find a job in tech, even if you don't have a technical degree, or a business degree for that matter, which I did not have. And while I do think there was certainly an element of luck in that process, when it comes down to when I applied, when they saw my resume, and when I could talk to them, I did everything within my own power to actually make that job happen for me. Do your research. Do everything you can to fully understand what this company does, what their product is, what problems they're trying to solve, what are their guiding principles when it comes to culture? Do they have them listed on their website? How do you think you embody or align with those principles? Because if you do, you need to do everything you can to help that company understand that you do, and you want to be a part of that mission and sort of getting that innovative product or solution out the door. And if you can do that, then you can have and build an interesting career in the tech industry. So that was how I got my first job. But at that company, I also had 4 other jobs within the course of my time there. Now I'm at a tech not-for-profit in a more strategic role that I really love. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about what it's like to work in the tech industry without a tech degree or certification, or if you want just early career advice in general, whether that's how to get that first job, how to conduct yourself in that first job, and how to sort of advocate for yourself in the workplace, you let me know, because I'm happy to continue this sort of advice style story time series, in addition to the rest of the fashion videos and the outfit challenges that I already do. So if you're interested, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, consider subscribing, and if you didn't, as promised, it might be different next time, so go ahead and try it anyway. Bye!